Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Merlin Season 4, Episode 11, The Sword in the Stone. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So this episode is a double episode. Because it's a double-length episode, I am going to be a little less detailed in the description just so that it doesn't take 10 minutes to get through it. So basically, we start the episode with a funny moment between Arthur and Merlin, where Merlin is adding an extra hole to Arthur's belt because he's put on some weight, before they then go to a feast with the rest of the knights. However, Agravain remains outside, signaling to Helios's bandit army with Morgana, who he then lets into Camelot, and they, of course, raise Camelot and end up entering the castle to take over Camelot's throne, which Morgana does temporarily manage. Gaius and Gawain stay behind, and also as they're running through the woods with Arthur, Percival and Elian. Percival, they end up losing him, and Elian stays behind and ends up captured, joining Gawain and Gaius in the prisons. Meanwhile, in order to get Arthur to leave, Merlin had to put a spell on him, which makes him very compliant and obedient as they escape into the forest and then manage to where Merlin is, and Gwen is also has been staying with Merlin's mom, and her and Arthur share a moment in the village before Agravain arrives at Yeldor and has it surrounded. Gwen, Merlin, Arthur, Tristan and Isolde all manage to escape, and as they're escaping, Merlin stays behind to have Kilgara come and attack the army, which does kill the majority of Agravain's assault group. Then they escape into caves. Agravain and what few of his men remain follow them into the caves. Once again, Merlin doubles back, and this time he does reveal his magic to Agravain, ultimately killing him with magic to save his secret and save Arthur, as well as killing Agravain's men. Then we have them escaping. They manage to make it to where the rest of the citizens have all gathered, and all of the knights that managed to survive and escape and not be imprisoned have all gathered, but Arthur has a bit of a confidence crisis, not believing he has the right to rule because, he was wrong about Morgana, he was wrong about Agravain, he trusted the wrong people, and now the consequences are that many of his citizens have died in the razing of Camelot, and, his throne was usurped, etc., etc. Merlin then goes to Kilgara for some advice, and Kilgara basically lets him know that the way forward is to somehow give Arthur his confidence back. Merlin figures out how to do that, and we see him telling Arthur the tale about the sword and the stone, how the first king of Camelot, before he died, went into the forest and sealed a sword in stone, so should his lineage ever be questioned, it would prove the rightful heir to the throne, and that by pulling the sword out, that will prove Arthur's right to lead. And so everybody gathers. Arthur at first struggles, but Merlin tells him he has to believe in himself. Second time he tries, he does manage to pull out the sword. And then Merlin, once again kind of making things up as he goes, tells Arthur that there's yet another part to the story, and that the person who pulled the sword from the stone is destined to unite all of the 5 kingdoms into one, which is Albion, the greatest king that there ever was, and that is definitely going to be Arthur, and he does manage to regain his confidence through pulling the sword. Meanwhile, while all of this has been going on, Morgana's taking over Camelot. She's forcing Gawain to basically fight the various bandits in exchange for food in order to keep them alive. Gaius is not doing very well in prison because he is old. But luckily they don't have much longer to wait, because they do, with Excalibur, storm the castle, and Morgana ends up, well, as they're just before they storm the castle, overnight while they sleep, Merlin sneaks into Camelot, disguises as Dragoon the Great, and he kind of taunts Morgana before casting a spell and putting a poppet under her bed. This is then revealed when they storm Camelot to have been a spell that makes Morgana unable to use her magic temporarily. So when she can't use magic against them, she then flees. Helios faces Arthur, Tristan, and Isolde, while Merlin runs after Morgana. While in the hallway, Gwen faces Morgana and is saved by Merlin, who then claims he has no idea what happened when Morgana went flying. Meanwhile, Arthur, Isolde, and Tristan fight Helios, and Helios almost defeats Arthur, but then Isolde stabs him from behind, but gets stabbed herself when Helios basically shoves his sword behind him as he's falling, and this leads to Isolde passing away, which is a touching scene. And then we have Gwen crowned queen at the end to give sort of a happy ending for those who are a fan of Gwen and Arthur together. And then we, at the very last scene of the episode, see Ithusa landing next to Morgana, who's lying in the woods, and healing her with her breath before flying off again. So now that we've been reminded about the bulk of what happened in the episode, it's now time to rank the episode. As always, we will be ranking on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. So I'm just going to give you the spoilers now. It is a 10 out of 10 episode. There's far too much that happened for it to be anything else, but I am still going to go through what I felt applied to this episode. So first we have the single episode supporting character introductions, which was Tristan and Isolde, worth 1 point each. Worth 2 points, we have our multi-episode supporting character development, and this is Agravain's death. Then we have our multi-season supporting character development, which is that Morgana attacks Camelot with Helios's army, usurping the throne, Morgana being healed by Ithusa, and Gwen being crowned queen, all of which are worth 3 points. We then have our impactful / memorable moment / line / etc., which is the whole sword in the stone concept, harkening back to that original myth, with Arthur pulling Excalibur from the stone to an audience, proving beyond any doubt his right to be the king. Also worth 3 points. We then have our multi-season main character development, which is Arthur being usurped, and then Merlin becoming Dragoon the Great in order to use magic against Morgana and revealing his magic to Agravain, as well as, well, Morgana still thinks Dragoon the Great is Emerus, not Merlin. So, but he does use the poppet, which is a trick that I believe Morgana had used previously on Uther to give him poor dreams and affect his health in previous episodes. But again, it does have the effect of weakening her magic. And Merlin also commits murder of Agravain with his magic, which I can't remember if yeah, he's done that before, but usually to wizards, not like normally not to people, but Agravain betrayed them first, so it's fine. Either way, those are both worth 4 points. Then we have our multi-season main character growth, which is Arthur regaining his confidence when he pulls the sword, and then that confidence is further solidified by the fact that Tristan, who was very against royalty, as soon as he found out that Arthur was king, kept calling him not special, that he's terrible as a king, that all nobles are trash, blah, blah, blah. But Tristan and Isolde changed their minds based on his behavior, showing that he is special, he is worthy of being a ruler, and, like I said, solidifying that confidence. Then we have our main relationship development, also worth 4 points again, which is Gwen being forgiven and then them being married so that she becomes queen. Then we have our negatives for the episode. First off is the character regression. Obviously, throughout most of the episode, Arthur is having a crisis of confidence and is very much lacking confidence, which is a regression from where he usually is, which is very confident. So that's minus 1 point. And then the negative messaging or behavior. Morgana does have a scene where she tortures Elian. So there's torture, very negative behavior. There's battles for sport in exchange for food, which Gwaine has to endure at Morgana's hands as well. That's minus 2. The betrayal of Agravain, obviously, minus 2 points. We have the forgiving of an adulterer, which I just think is poor messaging because, frankly speaking, I don't think cheaters should ever be forgiven. And that's maybe where my bias comes in, but I do think very strongly, don't forgive a cheater, don't take them back. So I do think it is negative messaging for Gwen to be taken back by Arthur and then be rewarded by becoming queen in addition to that. So that's minus 2, and then of course there's the murder of Agravain, which Merlin commits using his magic. He also technically uses the Kilgara as a weapon to kill most of Agravain's men, so that's all happening. But even with those negatives, we're still above 10. So again, it is a 10 out of 10 episode. Which brings us to the definitive season 4 rankings for mostly objective ranking because this is the last episode of season 4. And in first, we have The Darkest Hour, second, The Wicked Day, third, A Servant of Two Masters, fourth, Lancelot de Lac, fifth, A Herald of a New Age, sixth, The Sword in the Stone, 7, Athusa, 8th is Lamia, 9th, The Hunter's Heart, 10th, The Secret Sharer, and then in 11th is His Father's Son. For my personal ranking, I also scored it very highly because it is a good episode. There's a lot of action in it, so the entertainment value is high. It keeps the tension. It keeps the attention of the watcher. Like when the first half of the episode finished, it came out of nowhere because I was so engaged. I didn't even notice that we were getting close to the end of that episode. And then the second one obviously played after that. We have been building the entire season up to Agravain's betrayal and Morgana's comeback, so finally we get kind of the resolution to all of that we've been waiting for, and Agravain gets his just desserts, which is something that's great. However, as I mentioned personally, I have a very strong bias against cheaters, and I've never liked Gwen as a Guinevere character. As I've said from like literally episode 1, if she was a maid who happened to be named Guinevere, I think she would have been a great character. But as the Guinevere of legend, I don't think she fits at all. So I've never liked her as the Guinevere. And that is why I'm kind of disappointed that when she was forgiven and she became queen, I knew it was inevitable, obviously, but doesn't make it any less disappointing when it actually happens. So that was a negative. Ithusa, who was the dragon bringing new hope and everything in her episode, goes and saves Morgana, which again is kind of like disappointing, but because I've rewatched this before, it kind of leads into where season 5 leaves us. Um, so can't say much about that. I did find that I still don't understand why Agravain chose Morgana. Why would you choose the bastard child of the man who cheated on your wife to create that bastard child over your dead sister's only living child? Like, it does not make sense to me why he would pick Morgana over Arthur, especially when Arthur has never done anything negative himself. Like, I can understand him being upset with Uther. Uther is the one who cheated on his sister, who impregnated his sister and caused her to die in childbirth due to the nature of the way that she was impregnated. But again, that wasn't Arthur's fault. So I've never understood why Agravain was even against Arthur, and I don't feel the show did a good job of explaining that to me, because I am confused all these episodes later as to why he would pick Morgana over anybody else. Um, and then Morgana also, she wants the throne of Camelot, but she doesn't care about the people. She doesn't really even care if they're all dead. She literally is just after the chair. She doesn't care about any of the responsibility that comes with being a leader. And she's conquering the country with bandits who obviously will not be good to her in the long run. Like, she's just, I don't know why she thinks that's a good idea. And obviously, by this point, she's caused so much damage that no one's going to really accept her on the throne. So she'll basically be sitting on that chair and have people constantly trying to get her off of it. And what then is the point? She could have just gone off and made like a name for herself in one of the countries that does accept magic. She's very powerful. She has noble lineage. Like, she could have done so much, but she chose this path, which, again, I get it for the plot purposes, but it is disappointing because I do like Morgana as a character as well. I did love all of the magic that Merlin was doing this episode. It felt like every time we turned around, he was casting a spell of some sort on something, which, given like Merlin's supposed to be the most magical person ever, the fact that we get very little magic throughout the series is a bit disappointing overall. But this episode did have a lot of magic, which I greatly enjoyed. Um, And then I did find, like I said, the Sword in the Stone harking back to that original legend, and like how it was like in this really nice bright glade with the sword there. That was a very pretty sword, and all of the knights kind of on the hills around this like little um valley that he was in with the sword in the woods was a really epic scene. I think that it was visually really well done. And again, I enjoyed all of the action scenes with all of the battles and everything. So, like I said, I scored it highly, but I cannot forgive all of the negatives as well, which is why I gave it a 9 out of 10 rather than a 10. But that brings the definitive personal ranking list for season 4 so far to, in first place, A Servant of Two Masters, second, The Darkest Hour, The Wicked Day, The Sword and the Stone. This episode, oh wait, sorry. First place, Servant of Two Masters. Second, The Darkest Hour. Third, The Wicked Day. Fourth, this episode, The Sword and the Stone. Fifth, Athutha. Sixth, The Hunter's Heart. Seventh, Lancelot de Lac. Eighth, The Secret Sharer. 9, Lamia. 10th, A Herald of the New Age. And then in 11th is His Father's Son. Of course, because this is the last episode of this season, we now are able to put this season into its official spot in our ranking so far for the series. And under a mostly objective ranking, final score for season 4 was 95 out of a possible 110. This worked out to be 86.36%. Season 2 is in second place with 70.83%. Season 3 and third with 70%, and then Season 1 is currently in fourth place with 69.23%. Meanwhile, on the personal side, it's just getting better and better, it would seem. Season 4 also took first spot with a final score of 87 out of a possible 110, bringing it to 79.09%. Then we have Season 3 in second with 72.73%, Season 2 in third with 70.83%, and then Season 1 is currently in last place with 66.92%. But with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Merlin Season 4, Episode 11, The Sword and the Stone. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.